Since the 1960s, the government of the United States has enforced an embargo against the country of Cuba, over the decades increasing in severity. Cuba is now effectively blockaded from world trade and sovereignty, a right of all nations. Despite attempts to impoverish the Cuban people, they have resisted through the embodiment of radical solidarity and discipline. The U.S. Hands Off Cuba Committee gives activists and trade unionists an opportunity to learn from the people's movement, which has driven Cuba to unimagined heights in regards to education, healthcare, and democratic initiatives. By pairing with the Central de Trabajadores de Cuba, or the Workers' Central Union of Cuba, U.S. Hands Off Cuba Committee members participate in a conference of international trade unionists. Through lessons and discussions, this international group of workers discusses the plight of modern workers while learning about the revolutionary role trade unions have played in shaping our world. On May Day, like much of the world, Cubans celebrate International Workers' Day with a massive march of Cuban workers representing every trade and type of work on the island. With attendance in the millions across the country, the May Day March in Cuba is an awe-inspiring presentation of the power held within a united working class. A major source of pride for Cuba is the healthcare workers that provide incredible results for Cubans and the international community. Cuba guarantees healthcare to all its citizens through a government-operated system and enjoys health outcomes that exceed the United States and many other wealthy countries. Visiting the Calixto Garcia Hospital allows the committee to learn from doctors and nurses who deliver world-renowned healthcare in the face of harsh sanctions imposed by the United States. Tens of thousands of Cuban healthcare workers are deployed to dozens of countries to reinforce existing health systems and respond to emergencies. Committee members are able to help break the impact of the blockade through donating much-needed medicines and supplies. The abundance of healthcare workers comes from the institution of free education up to a PhD level. The University of Havana displays a rich history linked to the social and political movement of Cuba. Meeting with students and faculty gives insight to a school system dedicated to educating instead of turning learning into a commodity. The dedication to scholarly excellence has allowed Cuba to create innovations in biotechnology that have revolutionized treatment of diabetes, lung cancer, and Alzheimer's. A free and open education also shows the commitment Cubans have towards international solidarity, as students from across the world utilize Cuba's education system to gain advanced degrees, especially in medicine. The committee was able to hear from a medical student from Palestine who is grateful to Cuba for offering him the tools needed to someday return to Palestine and help cure his community. International solidarity is a value that Cubans adhere to in historic proportions, which is exemplified by the Cuban support for Angola's defense against apartheid South Africa. Over 16 years, 300,000 Cubans provided medical care, education, and a military contingent integral in breaking the white supremacist hold on power. Thousands of Cubans sacrificed their lives in a successful effort to repel South African aggression in Angola, which led to the release of Nelson Mandela. Being able to connect with the veterans of this historical action of international solidarity allows the committee to engage with the people who put their hands on the arc of history and bent it towards justice. The U.S. Hands Off Cuba Committee seeks to engage the citizens of the United States with Cuba and its rich history in an effort to end the U.S. blockade against Cuba, lift the travel ban, trade bans, and sanctions, return Guantanamo Naval Base to Cuba, remove Cuba from the state sponsor of terrorism list, respect Cuba's sovereignty, and end regime change policies. The U.S. Hands Off Cuba Committee is committed to working to end aggressive U.S. policies not only toward Cuba, but other Caribbean and Latin countries, including U.S. regime change efforts in Venezuela and Bolivia, as well as supporting the struggles of popular movements of poor, working, and indigenous peoples of the Americas to obtain peace and sustainability.